Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. And my name is George.
My name is Tom.
And my name is Adam.
And with our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. We have successfully, 2 weeks in a row, started both the recording and the live stream at the same time. 21st century coming at ya.
As we all know, good things come in twos,
Mm-hmm.
as the expression goes.
That is how the expression goes.
Yep, that's exactly how it is. There's no other amount of times that things go well in, and they won't in future.
Now our 20,000 Twitch followers will actually be able to
finally
listen to us.
They can get off the Amaranth hot tub stream and come and hang out with us instead. Where have you been?
Yeah, everyone needs a little break from a hot tub stream.
Although
you gotta rehydrate.
Speaking of Amaranth's hot tub streams, I heard that I saw a little clip that she basically did the hot tub stream to end all hot tub streams and had was hanging out with Angela White, the adult film actress, and
the Australian porn
star. It was like 10 of them all in a pool together, just hanging out. I was just like, man, how am I going to compete with that? How am I?
We're in the wrong.
It's reaching a critical mass of hot tub streams where it becomes so hot that
it's too much hot tub. Live streams are made for ugly people like us with opinions, not for gorgeous adult entertainment stars all hanging out in a pool together. How am I supposed to compete with that, Adam?
George, you've misunderstood it. It's like podcasting and radio were meant for ugly people like us because you can't see them.
Yes.
Remember, that's the face for radio thing. So
sure.
no, on camera stuff. This is their domain. We're in the wrong business.
You're right. Well,
we're
gorgeous young women,
territory.
Yeah,
right. If we were gorgeous young women in hot tubs. Like I think we should have chosen different paths.
Mm-hmm.
I can go and buy one of those blow up hot tubs and sit in it while we do the show if that's what everyone wants.
I mean,
I am bringing the sexy in this week. I don't know if you hear it, but a slight husk going on in my voice.
You really are, yeah. You're doing things to me, Adam, with that husky tones. I love a husky voice.
Sexy is one way of putting it. Like nails on a chalkboard is possibly another, but we'll work with it. We'll workshop it.
I'm not going to yuck your yum if nails on chalkboard's your thing. And it sounds like it's mine, given I'm enjoying the voice. But, let's...
So, back by unpopular demand, we're now doing the show in a hot tub. Get ready, ladies.
I think, like everything we do, we get on the trends way too late.
7 to 12 years
streaming.
Too late.
Yeah, let's us start hot tub streaming now, well after it was a big talking point.
Mm-hmm.
And also lacking, I feel, the aesthetics that make a hot tub stream worthwhile.
That's a very diplomatic saying that.
You don't need to have the aesthetic, Tom. You could just be like Donald Trump and just go for it.
And just go for it.
You think he's ever done a hot tub scene?
Well, he does love raising money, so I wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah.
So we talked about it last week. This is a news and politics podcast, in case you're unaware. Donald Trump obviously was indicted for 34 felony fraud charges over the alleged hush money payments he made. He definitely made to Stormy Daniels.
A lot of charges and some others, allegedly.
Yeah, but as you all know, it's going to be innocent until proven definitely guilty.
Innocent until proven, yes, you are in fact Donald Trump, or guilty.
Yeah. So he was arraigned this last week, which means he was... asked to come in very politely. Hey, do you mind coming to New York for this court, for this hearing, for this arraignment? And he, of course, pleaded, not guilty. And then he swiftly fucked off back to Florida and did a big press conference and speech about. He basically did his greatest hits of crime.
Yeah, it really was like a Johnny Farnham farewell tour kind of thing, right? Of just like, all right, here's what the crowd's here for. Here's my top hits of the last 40 years.
It was so bananas.
How long did it go for?
I feel like it was going for a good 45 minutes or so. Like it was a decently sized speech, but like the content was just kind of like you asked Chat GPT to come up with give me 45 minutes of insane Donald Trump rambling. This is what would have come out. So he was talking about just saying that like what he did wasn't a crime with the document. Like, remember how I took those documents and we took those documents and then we took them back to my place and they were mostly clothes, those boxes filled with documents. And it's not a big deal because I'm the president and I can declassify them with my brain.
Yeah.
Anytime I could just declassify those documents that I took. And it's not a big deal. And like Joe Biden did it as well. He took 1,300 boxes of documents to Chinatown. And I was just like, what is happening? Am I suddenly high? What is happening? Hillary's emails, like it was the full like Donald Trump bingo card of like, it's so funny to me that his strategy.
Did he say there was no collusion? Was that a sentence uttered?
I'm pretty sure there was something about, the Russia hoax. The 2016 hoax, the 2020 hoax, the first impeachment, the second impeachment. He's basically just reminding everyone of all the criminal shit that he ever did.
That's what it seemed like. It was like, rather than just coming out to say like, I maintain my innocence, like these charges are bogus, I'm going to fight them, etc., etc. He then also throws in like, and they came for me for colluding with Russia. They came for me.
Oh, there was the Raffensperger call, which I said was a perfect call, which was even more of a perfect call. And I was like, by the way, perfect's a definite article. You can't be more perfect by definition. Perfect is this objective state of perfection. But anyway, besides that, like you said, it was a more perfect call than the other call he did with Ukraine and Zelensky, which was made up the content of the fucking second impeachment hearing. It's like, well, the first impeachment.
That was the first impeachment.
That was the first
hearing.
one, where he was threatening to withhold. Anyway, the point is, he was just like free associating, like jazz scatting all of the corrupt shit he did for the last.
Jazz scatting is a good description of what he does generally.
Zelensky. Hillary's emails, like Russia, if you're listening, like the whole thing was just so batshit insane. I was like, if you are trying to become the nominee for your party, the Republican Party, to become the president of the United States, why are you? It's like he almost went to the extent of going like, hey, remember that time I said to nuke a hurricane? Like he's just bringing up all the crazy, insane shit he ever did and just being like, hey, remember that time? Remember that time that I said?
I guess the sheer volume of bullshit that always is coming out of his mouth, like that's always worked for him, right? Like there's been so much crap. Like he does so many so many things that are worthy of like a million headlines of like, and another batshit thing Trump said that he's just getting it all out of the way now. Like if he hits us with an hour-long speech of insanity, we can't all keep up with it, right?
Remember when I said grab him by the pussy? Anyway, this speech is about me being indicted. It's just
remember that.
And Jesus. The thing is, it's kind of like it's worked to his advantage because off the back of this, they've raised about $7 million in like.
Didn't they have like a big like text Trump or something like it as he was speaking? It was like give us money to raise. For
whenever he makes one of these speeches on the lectern, they have like a text Trump to 1-800 cuck lord,
whatever,
and it'll and then that'll sort of start the process of donating money to the campaign. But so he
maintained the visage that he's wealthy. Like he always has the thing of like I'm a rich guy because I'm so successful because I arted so many deals and just fucking like I'm such a successful businessman that I'm so rich. Anyway, please donate to my legal fund.
The whole
like
thing
doesn't work.
The whole thing is a grift. They were talking about he's going to get a mugshot and then we're going to like sell the mugshot and like if you donate here you'll be like pre-line for the mugshot t-shirt kind of thing.
Buy the mugshot.
There was no
NFT.
mugshot, but they just kept people's money anyway. Oh god, the NFT trading cards. It's just like and apparently in the Republican primaries in the polls, his numbers have jumped since all of this has happened.
So they have. And that's what a lot of people were afraid of, right? Was that this would actually, and it seems to potentially be what they're going for, is like,
martyr him.
Just lean.
Let's use this as the public free publicity to further the campaign for the nomination.
Well, I mean, it's probably pretty easy to if you've been pushing the narrative of deep state conspiracy, whatever, it's pretty easy to then adjust. Well, they're coming for me in the courts for the advantage of that, right? It's like all the comparisons people are making to like, when a nation overthrows its leader and then throws the previous leader in jail on zero pretense. Like, this is the same. It's like, well, no, it's not. There's pretense. But
it does help that the guy is a massive criminal. So
yes, it really helps when there's actually a litany of evidence. I guess just some details as to like the 34 counts that he has been charged with. The prosecution has alleged that Mr. Trump orchestrated a, quote, catch and kill scheme to buy and suppress negative information about him in the lead up to the election. So including the Stormy Daniels story that we've talked about before, also paying some alleged hush money to a Playboy model, Karen McDougal, but also to one of a doorman at Trump Tower who was apparently claiming that Trump had a child out of wedlock. Which, scandal. But I find it funny.
Presidency.
I find it funny that they just call it a catch and kill scheme. I think that's just a very interesting kind of thing. But I guess not to be confused with a catch and release scheme, because then it would have been a phishing scam. Thank you. I had that locked and loaded for the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, no, I kind of had the energy where it's kind of felt like you were going somewhere, so I didn't want to cut in. So, but no, it was worth it. It was definitely all worth it. So,
thank you.
Donald Trump, it seems like I can't imagine this is going to help him in the general. But like,
I don't know. Like,
we said that in 2016, George. We're like, surely not this psychopath.
Surely calling Mexicans rapists.
No, this wouldn't happen.
Grab them by the pussy. Surely
not in America.
But if your guy
all this won't help him in the general.
If your guy is a convicted criminal who's literally in jail at the time of the presidential election, like, I don't see the independents going, oh, I didn't vote for him before, but now that he's been jailed, now that he's a convicted criminal, I really think this is my guy. I guess American elections are so close, right? We're talking a couple of percentage points in a lot of states and a handful of states. If even just a handful of independents go, oh, I'm going to go with the person who's not a convicted criminal as opposed to the one who is.
Swing voters, basically, right?
Well, yeah, swing-ish voters. I mean, the whole idea of a truly swing voter is kind of a misnomer, because a lot of those independents will consistently or pretty much consistently vote for one party or the other. They lean in a certain direction, either conservative or liberal. So I think that the number of like actually independent voters who are like, I don't know, I'm just going to like flip a coin every election cycle, I think that the number of those people is actually quite small. But yeah, there are a not insignificant amount of independents or people that identify themselves as independents. And I think a lot of people are going to be really switched off in a general, are going to be switched off by, yes, a criminal conviction. Even if it does seem like it's political or feel to them as though it's politically motivated, because it's like, it's not just this
trial date,
right? The trial date's not until December of this year, which seems like
a year out from the general.
That seems like an interesting time well, there's no good time, right? Like there's no, as the person who's the defendant who's running up for a presidential election, I don't think there's the ideal time is 2025 after I've been elected president. That's when we should do this. That's
when I'm under the full protection of the Secret Service and military.
Yeah, well, it is around the time of nominations, though, isn't it?
So that would be around the around the
nominations, the nominations I thought are quite relatively quite close to the primaries.
Basically, where they say this is the candidate for the.
I'm pretty sure the primaries will have started at that point. Yeah, so there's no good time.
But I thought it's not until like June or July of the election year that they then go, all right, this is the person on the ticket. Like once all the primaries are done.
The primaries take a while. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it's quite close to the actual general as to when that sort of thing happens. I don't know. I think in terms of like the swing voters and stuff like that, maybe some of them will just be like huge, like silly buggers and be like, fuck, like one of the candidates in jail? Let's see where this goes.
Yeah, maybe.
For the lols. Be like, this has never happened before.
I wouldn't put it past him. Yeah, look, there's still a very real chance that he could become the president and all this sort of stuff. I have to think that a criminal conviction on your record is a deal breaker for some small portion of Americans.
I wish I shared your optimism, George.
I have to think so. But yeah, there's nothing, like we've said before, there's nothing that would prevent him from being president just purely like he could run from president. They could hold debates in jail. He could run and succeed in winning the presidency from jail. There's nothing in the law that prevents him from doing that. So
I thought on one of the recent episodes of The Bugle, was it Nish Kumar pointed out, we'll run run rallies in jail. And it just makes me wonder, what would that look like? Like Trump holding a rally in prison.
The Cell Block D rally live streamed across the US.
I mean, I'm sure there'd be a lot of like Nazi sympathizers in prisons that would probably be like, yeah, this guy. But I also wonder if Trump would be the kind of guy also you'd have to keep him pretty well protected in jail.
Well, here's the thing, is like he's still an ex-president, so he's going to have a Secret Service detail in jail if he goes to jail because he's still an ex-president. Like, yeah,
wow.
The whole thing is very weird.
That's an interesting precedent. I wonder what that'll look like. Like, fuck, do they just act as guards, or like is he never alone? Or I don't know. Fuck,
you'd be separated. You wouldn't be in Gen Pol as a former president, I think. Just hanging out with White Power Bill. I don't know. Actually, he might have a good cadre of supporters in jail. I think he'd be perfectly safe.
But also, he might not. Like, I mean, it seems like those guys usually have there's still a certain moral code among everyone. I wonder where Trump fits in it.
Start a prison riot and then call it a insurrection.
Call it a peaceful protest on the Capitol. It's all going to be an interesting shit show. I've seen some headline going around. I should have shared this to the group thing of like Stormy Daniels saying that he shouldn't go to prison for the hush money thing that she's alleging. But I think they're burying the lead there, because I reckon she's not saying he shouldn't go to prison. It's he shouldn't go to prison for specifically this. There are plenty of other things that he should go to prison for.
Well, and that's the other thing. So I mentioned earlier, there's the Brad Raffensperger case. The secretary, I can't remember the name of the position. The Secretary General in Georgia, where he basically called him up and said, "Hey, you got
to say, can you please conveniently find 11,000 votes?
You just got to find me 11,000 votes. That's all I need. What you got? What you got, baby?" So I mean that's sort of that's a case that's in process. There's also the case. There's a number of different cases going against him at this stage. So this happens to be the first that he's been indicted for, but I suspect that there will be other more serious cases, sort of happening alongside them. So I don't know. We'll wait and see. But it's nice to see Teflon Don finally face a couple of consequences for his actions. That's nice.
I mean, yeah, at least
he didn't even get handcuffed, man. Come on, there's no consequences there. It's actually helping them.
Dude, it's embarrassing to have to get dragged from Florida to go to New York to, do a perp walk and sit in front of a judge and like say not guilty.
I mean,
he looked a little bit sort of apprehensive to me. He didn't have that same sort of swagger that he normally does.
Photos of him looking sullen, sitting at a defendant's desk in a courtroom. It's a little satisfying. Let us have that. Yeah, let us just have that little treat as a win. Just a little num. Just I
reckon the cognitive dissonance is that high that he reckons that this is an opportunity as opposed to a consequence.
Oh, well, I mean, sure, he'll, I don't know. But deep down, do you reckon he's like that when he's finally alone at the end of the day and he just sits on the end of his bed? Or just is like, opportunity, yeah, this is an opportunity, and isn't like, stares off into space as Hello Darkness, My Old Friend starts playing and he hoes into another big bucket of McDonald's or whatever watching Fox News?
I think you're giving him too much credit. I think to assume that he has any kind of internal life whatsoever, I think is overestimating him.
Yeah, fair enough. Like he just shuts down.
Puts his AirPods in and listens to some Tony Robbins at the end of the day, perk himself up.
His vitriol machine just powers down and he waits for his next opportunity to strike. Like I really don't know that there's anything going on beyond just like pure narcissism and I'm going to show you, I'll show you all. I'm going to show you, daddy. Like that's all that's operating under the hood there. I don't think there's any humanity left whatsoever.
Given the relationship between him and his father, sort of attributed to a lot of sources, would not surprise me. I think Fred Christ Trump was a bit of an asshole.
Yeah, that's not a joke. His middle name was Christ.
Was Christ. Yep.
Happy Easter, everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Happy Easter.
Christ,
speaking of having no soul, Peter Dutton and the Liberal Party.
Yeah. So, what was that you were saying, Adam, about you're pretty sure that Peter Dutton and the Liberal Party were on board with the Voice to Parliament? Could you just remind me of that?
Or at least that they've read the
as
room.
of a couple of weeks ago, they hadn't said that they weren't opposed to it.
Yeah.
They were opposed to it.
Remind me, because you said like you're pretty sure that he was on board with it. So can you just
they were a couple of weeks ago. They were looking at potentially being in the yes camp.
Well, they've looked at it, they've listened, they've learned, and they've acted. And the Liberal Party has decided to formally oppose the government's model for an Indigenous voice to Parliament, and instead push for legislated local and regional bodies, which means nothing.
Yeah, they've said they're going to oppose the voice to Parliament because they care about Indigenous people's rights too much.
Too much.
We care so much. No.
That's why Ken Wyatt resigned, is because they care too much about Indigenous Australians.
So break it down. Hang on, sorry, George. Yeah, just break down what the distinction that they've made is and why it makes no fucking sense or why it's stupid.
So what they've said is the Liberal Party resolved today to say yes to constitutional recognition for Indigenous Australians, yes to a local and regional body so we can get practical outcomes for Indigenous people on the ground, but there was a resounding no to the Prime Minister's voice, Dutton told a press conference in Canberra on Wednesday. We want to make sure we can get the best possible outcomes for Indigenous Australians and do that through recognising Indigenous Australians in the Constitution. Having a Canberra voice won't resolve the issues on the ground for Indigenous communities. So, like...
That's a, like, just the gut feeling straight there. That just felt like a lot of words to say nothing at all.
Yeah.
Like, I've got like, hang on. So, you do want to recognize them in the Constitution, and you want a local and regional body, and you want practical outcomes. Yeah, but you think that recognizing them, but having a voice in Canberra won't resolve the issues. But the voice is a local and regional body, and it also is part of a constitutional recognition. And
what they're trying to get at here is that the concept the Liberals have, and this is what's being pushed by Peter Price and other people, is that, and this has been the Nationals' platform the whole way along, is that a Canberra body with the bigwigs and the elites won't speak for the people of the Indigenous communities around the country. And I think that it'll just...
Except that the voice has been done in consultation with Indigenous communities and is based on the Uluru Statement from the Heart, which is the culmination of a decade's worth of work from various Indigenous bodies all over Australia. So, like, by definition, the voice is a representation of what the majority of the Indigenous community wants to put forward to Parliament. So
it's also at the moment they haven't, worked out, will there be a couple of people from each state or how big the voice will be? None of that specific detail has been sort of confirmed yet. So to say that it's not going to speak for those people,
but that's for the lawmakers
is presumptive.
Because if you go, it's not going to speak to the people. We need more local and regional members to be part of this voice to Parliament in order for it to work. And it's like, okay, well, you're part of the government that's going to legislate this. You could insist on that. That is how this works.
So it sounds like this is coming from the broad church of the Liberal Party, which is basically saying that the Conservatives have more votes than the moderates, and have decided to vote no. So what they've said is that it's a party position that we'll be voting no. But all ministers will have to back this position. But if you're a backbencher, you technically get a voice your own opinion, which is apparently the standard way that the Liberal Party does things these days. But as there's already one person, which is the what's her name, Bridget Archer. She's already saying
Bridget Archer has said, "I would like to retain my seat, please." Yes, I'll be in favour of a voice to Parliament because, of course, I will.
That's just so bananas in the thing of being like, what's their position? It's like, well, we want to be saying no because we're the opposition, and just in times of crisis, we're just like, well, just no to whatever the other guy says, but also, fuck, we have read the room, and that people kind of seem to be really on board with this. Fuck, how do we do both? And they kind of just shit themselves, and this is what comes out.
But of course, the thing is, like, that's their position, and they can have that position. But if the referendum doesn't get up, none of those things that they've talked about will actually happen.
Yeah,
exactly.
And they just seem to suddenly really care about these things.
Yeah.
Like when you had 9 years to care about them.
Yeah, well, and that's the classic sort of hypocrisy of the Liberal Party, isn't it? It's the same thing with the, with the plebiscite. It's the same. Any time we come up against some sort of social issue, the Liberals are like, no, it's because we care about insert issue too much, that we wanted to allow it to be regulated by having any kind of incremental reform and moving things forward. No. Certainly it would be much better if we continue to debate and do nothing about said issue for the long term and make sure that we have a local process with local regional governments from the ground up that we're not responsible for said issue. Like, you can really have whether it's the plebiscite and gay marriage, or whether it's the voice to parliament, or whether it's any other kind of like incremental social reform, the Liberals are like, no, it's more detail, it's reasons. There's definitely good reasons as to why we're not saying we don't want it because it's bad. We just don't want it for other reasons. But of course, it's to me, it's completely unsurprising. It's like, this is where the Liberal Party has been headed all along, is that they were always looking at opposing it. They just needed a fucking justification to oppose it so they don't lose voters. But guess what?
Especially after the by-election.
You're losing voters. Like, this Liberal Party in its current form exists to serve low information voters over 50 who are white, who live in suburban and exurban areas, and basically no one else. All of the inner city blue ribbon Liberal seats are losing. Even exurban seats like Aston are losing. They're losing to the existing government during a by-election, which has not happened in 103 years. Because typically, whenever there's a by-election, people go, we're going to stick it to the government and show them how sick of them we are. Like, that is, it's like the midterms in America. It is standard practice for the government to lose a by-election when they are in power. So the fact that the government is gaining steam, the Labor government is gaining steam in such an environment, should indicate that the Liberal Party, in its current form, with its current leadership, is a losing proposition. Like, and like, if you want to spend 2 or 3 generations in the wilderness, like, be my guest. As a Labor partisan hack, I welcome your indifference to this issue. But for a democracy to work, you need to have 2 healthy, functioning parties. And it just seems like the Liberals are too busy, like, fighting off the Teals to the left, fighting off One Nation to the right. And here I am stuck in the middle with you, Peter Dutton.
I think it's more. I don't think it's even the left and the right. I think it's literally within the Liberal Party. I think they still haven't resolved
what's their value
the factionalism.
What's the unique selling proposition for the Liberal Party?
Yeah, but they don't. They can't agree on that because they're what I'm saying is they're still factional. It's the same thing that did Turnbull in. Like, there is a conservative faction of the Liberal Party, and it's probably in the majority if you take this, because Peter Dutton's at the helm.
Especially with all the more quote unquote liberal people like Trent Zimmerman and Josh Frydenberg, the people who are meant to be sort of like the more sort of centrists of the party, all got turfed out in the last election. Yeah, Bridget Archer's probably the only notable one left.
So you've got a bunch of people who are basically just like, what's the guy of Sky News?
Andrew Bolt.
No, the other one, Chris Kenny. Where it's just like, you've got to be going harder. It's like they are like spoon feeding this shit like to each other. Like, it's just, there's got a big drip line of conservative bullshit just like going down the pipeline. Yep. So I don't think until Dutton decides to quit, and potentially there's another election where they do get decimated and they have to then refill all the ranks from the ground up, then maybe they won't be an effective opposition, and maybe that'll be an 8-year turnaround for them, unless Albanese and the Labor governments do something drastically crazy and force everyone to hate them. I mean, the Greens have probably got more chance of picking up seats at this point. So yeah, I mean, it's
dear God, no,
not the Greens,
not the Greens.
No.
Oh God.
I mean, they've given bloody Peter Dutton some fucking glasses to try and cover the fact he's got no hair on his face and head, which, I'm sure there's a reason for that. So,
I'm watching the Harry Potter films again, and I have to say that the resemblance to Voldemort is striking. Like, it is. You can put glasses on this egg, but it's really not going to make that much of a difference.
I do wonder whether he's got the thing where your hair falls out. What's that called?
Alopecia. No, I don't.
I wonder whether he's got that. I'm not sure, because he doesn't look like he's got any eyebrows either. So it makes me wonder.
I think he might. So. But
it's hard to tell because he's wearing the glasses now, and all you see are the glasses, and you think, oh, obviously he's smart. That's the same thing Albanese did. You put some glasses on to work out a little bit, do your hair. I mean, he hasn't got any hair, so does he just polish the scalp? And then everyone goes, oh, he's respectable. But the thing is, like, you can't polish a turd, guys.
No, that's true. And there is plenty we can criticize him for that have nothing to do with his appearance. He's just that terrible.
The thing is, I think their opposition...
If we're any other leader, at this point, where you've your party's had a major election loss, you've lost quite big at the local by-election in Aston, which you said was a referendum on your leadership. There's potentially another by-election coming up in the seat of Cook. It's rumoured that former Prime Minister and current duffel bag of shit, Scott Morrison, is looking to resign his seat by the end of June.
Which would trigger former half the front bench, Scott Morrison.
For Minister for Art, Science, merry-go-rounds, cisterns, sports, and infrastructure, Scott Morrison. So he's apparently looking to resign his seat, I guess, now that he's lined up some plum deal with a think tank or a consultancy or something. He's looking to resign his seat, and then there'll be another by-election coming up for the seat of Cook in June, is the rumor. So, if he loses that as well, I don't know how many more referenda you can have on Peter Dutton's leadership for the leadership of the party, when there seem to be a lot of internal divisions. I think he said it out loud. Didn't he say something to the effect of, my job is to keep the party together?
Yeah. That's him saying the Liberal Party is about to collapse.
But that's because saying the quiet part out loud. That's not evidence of good leadership. I don't imagine if you hear, Julius Caesar going, friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. I really got to keep the Roman Empire together. Shit's fucked.
I mean, I think, maybe we're at a point where it's like, if it's not, this has been the issue since Tony Abbott, where the party is so factionalized that it doesn't work anymore. I say maybe if it doesn't work anymore, maybe it's time it didn't exist. Like the great Menzies, he'll be turning in his grave, whatever. Doesn't matter. Maybe the Liberals just need to go their separate ways. You can have your Conservative Party and you can have your moderates. And then you'll find probably that the moderates will be the ones that end up getting more seats.
Yeah, but they're still not going to form enough. This is the thing. This is the whole reason that the Liberals and Nationals have a coalition in the first place, is there is not enough.
So they can form government.
Exactly right.
But this is in some ways we've been very lucky in Australia in that we've had probably, since the country's inception, a two-party, system where there's been majorities. If you go to Europe, they've got fucking 7 parties and coalitions and 10 elections in a year just to try and make it all bloody work.
Well, that's what happened in Finland just recently. Even though Sanna Marin's party picked up additional seats, the other parties that she was in coalition with lost seats. And so, because there's so many different parties, they weren't able to form a coalition and form government, even though her party was popular and actually picked up seats compared to the last election. The Conservative coalition was able to get in this time round as a result. So it's I see what you're saying about fragmentation. I guess the point I'm making is good.
Seeing parties collapse when it's a party you don't like is kind of fun.
It's a bit exciting.
I think what would probably happen is if they go there, let's say this Liberal Party splits and there's a Conservative Party and there becomes the Cory Bernardi, more of a moderate party.
Common sense
I think
party.
what would naturally happen is you would see the moderates end up through over the course of, say, 10 years, they would eventually pick up seats and become the second major party because they would draw in the Teals. They would naturally find air in the current cultural environment. Whereas the Conservatives can go over and, have sex with the Nationals or something. I don't care. But they still aren't going to have enough oxygen and enough cultural will to propel them along.
I think you're wrong. I think that whole moderate wing of the Liberal Party is more or less dead. Like, I don't think there's much there anymore. I think it's really a case of like, if you want a moderate Liberal, you vote Labor. Like, that's what a moderate Liberal is nowadays, is the Labor Party or maybe a teal independent, depending on your seat. Like, and then the Greens are now the leftist party. I do think we are bordering on an existential crisis for the. It makes me happy to say, but I do think we are bordering on an existential crisis for the Liberals, in that if they can't find a way to insert themselves in the mainstream and be a part of that mainstream sort of like, where the not Oppenheimer window, what's it called? The Overton window.
The Oppenheimer window.
Oppenheimer window is something
very
else
different
entirely.
thing.
Oppenheimer window, you need to view that with shades because otherwise you will go blind.
And at a minimum safe distance.
So the Overton window has kind of shifted in Australian politics to where the Liberals need to, like we said, that 2012 Republican autopsy that they did after the Mitt Romney election, they need to do something drastic to reposition the party and be a party of, whether it's, center right or compassionate conservative or welcoming in, transgender, gay, LGBTQI, A+ people and being welcoming to immigrants in order to try and solidify the votes in those communities. But like, again, aren't you just the Labor Party at that stage? Like, I just don't know.
We're going to get the Futurama John Jackson and Jack Johnson candidates just being exactly the same.
I don't know where they fit in the landscape anymore. There is a contingent of people who are very enthusiastic about like hard right conservative politics, and that's who Chris Kenny and Peter Credlin and all those people are speaking to. That's what they're trying to manifest. That's what they're trying to like the secret into the world.
They're trying to fucking hope that there's more of them than they think there is.
Than there are. And so if you're voting Liberal, that is kind of, or National, that is who you're voting for. You're voting for that hard right or you're voting for Pauline Hanson's One Nation with Pauline Hanson. But
the Pauline Hanson experience.
If they go through this review and they can't reconcile that, don't you think they should just go their separate ways and call it a day rather than fucking stringing the Australian populace along like little fucking sheep going, we can still vote Liberal?
I suppose it depends. I'm sort of in two minds. What do I think they should do? If I was a Liberal Party, if I was a young Liberal for some reason, if I was cursed at birth and I was forced to be a young Liberal, what would my advice be to them? Yeah, be a centrist party, right? Be in the middle. Middle is where the votes are. That's where, by definition, most of the people are who vote are. So if you want to be in power, you should be where most of the people are. And that means being more progressive on social issues. You can still have some kind of like conservative fiscal, conservatism kind of agenda. I think that plays pretty well with the Australian populace at large. Being like, we've got to get the debt and deficit down. People hate debt and deficit because they learned something about credit cards in year 9 and they think they understand it. So that message still hits for someone. But the rest of their social agenda, which is what really excites them, that's what gets them up in the morning, is like hating on trans kids. Like that is not a popular position anymore and is not going to be. So I kind of feel like if you're a centrist, you should, in reality, I think if you're a centrist, you'd probably just join the Labor Party, because the Labor Party is dead center in terms of the politics at the moment, in terms of fiscal conservatism, in terms of social policy. Labor, if you look at the vote compass, Labor is dead in the middle in the crosshairs there. So I just kind of think that contingency is they're already either voting Labor or they've gone One Nation direction. Or they've gone One Nation. I don't think they're that center-right kind of like compassionate conservatism thing. I just don't think it really exists anymore. I don't think it's palatable to people under 50. I think I read some report recently that said for people, was it under 30 or something like that? For people under 30, only about 20% of them are coalition voters. It's like as the next generation comes into adulthood, comes into, millennials were coming into the peak of our spending, our coming into political power and office and all those sorts of things. Like, it is a very small minority of us that are conservative voters. So if the Conservative Party wants to survive, they've got to do something different. But I guess what I'm saying is, I don't know what they could do differently to what they are doing now and still be conservative. Does that make sense? It's like,
yeah,
if you want to survive, you need to not be conservative anymore.
I mean, you could say that if there were two parties at the centre, truly at the centre, and it became a contest of ideas, then maybe that would be good for the country. But, that also might bore people to tears. So I guess it depends.
But again, what's the point of having a slightly centre-left, slightly centre-right party? Like, I think people are really hungry for more action than that. And that's why you're seeing such attention going to the Teals, going to the Greens, going to Pauline Hanson's One Nation featuring Pauline Hanson, is because people want change. They don't want business as usual type politics. They recognize that there's a unique challenge in climate change. There's a unique challenge in the coronavirus and managing the economy and inflation and economic stagnation. Kind of like, we think taxes should be slightly lower. We think taxes should be slightly higher. Like, that dialogue does not fucking get people rock hard for politics anymore. Like, it just doesn't, it doesn't cut it. So if you're going to get people involved, you're going to have to speak to them in a way that excites them.
Yeah.
You got to stake a claim. And Labor has got that centrist ground, center left.
Well, the Liberals are staking their claim, but it's on the wrong side of
it's on the territory that no one wants. They've staked their claim in a swamp.
Yeah, they're staking their claim on something that people are like, we don't want that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wheel out the guillotines. That'll get people's attention. You'll be a shoo-in.
Speaking
Sharpen them up.
Speaking of staking their claim, Finland has joined NATO. Whoop.
Now, was this an action of, because we were just talking about the Finnish PM, or the ex-Finnish PM just a minute ago, was this one of her actions, or has this been something that's been enacted by the more right-wingy person who got in?
No, so this was the product of the Sanna government. I think for things like this, I think it's more like, I don't know how like very actively involved she was in sort of getting it through. I think part of this is like, a lot of this is diplomats and sort of State Department type people sort of negotiating and backing forth. With one another. I don't think it's like
as the Prime Minister, you are like, I guess you're the responsible for all this sort of stuff.
I guess what I'm saying is
I don't mean she literally held the meeting that made the decision, maybe, but
it was definitely her administration that's done this. Yeah. So Finland traditionally, throughout the whole Cold War, despite sharing a 1,300 kilometer long border with Russia,
big border.
Big fucking border.
They were neutral for the entire Cold War. It's only because of the stuff in Ukraine and Putin's increasing sort of craziness that they've decided to join NATO, which is a massive sort of slap in the dick, basically, for Putin, because the whole point of him going into Ukraine is to rail against Western
NATO expansion.
And they've just been like, oh, well, suck a dick. We'll just join.
Now the amount of NATO that borders your country has doubled.
More than that. It's like tripled, I think, in some cases. But they're also saying that Sweden is also meant to be joining NATO. Sweden is in between for geographically challenged people like myself. There's Russia on the east, then there's Finland, then there's Sweden, and then there's Norway, and that makes up the top sort of Nordic countries to the north.
Think of it like
mainland Europe,
like what's
a
that
sandwich?
3-color ice cream.
Neapolitan.
It's a Neapolitan ice cream.
Yeah. So, which one's strawberry? Because that's the one no one ever wants.
Sweden. No, Sweden should be chocolate, surely. That makes the most sense, doesn't it?
You'd think so. I was just trying to box you into a corner.
That's different to Sweden.
Always gets the Swiss and Sweden mixed up. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Anyway, I was just trying to box you into a corner to call one of those countries one that no one wants, and just to get you cancelled.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Okay. You're welcome. But no, you managed to avoid it by mixing up Sweden.
By being ignorant.
Yeah. So kudos. Continue, Adam.
So Sweden is still technically neutral, but they're sort of in the last gasp of trying to sign on. I think there's some hesitation from other NATO members around it. Sweden, by the way, is already, like, both Finland and Sweden have huge militaries. Like, you don't need to put US troops in Finland, for instance, because the Finnish already have a 258,000 strong army.
They're pretty aware that they're right next to Russia.
Yeah.
They're definitely something of which they are definitely aware.
Yeah, in the big game of real life risk, Finland is quite stacked.
Yeah.
And this is a real fucking gut punch to the Russians, because you look at the map. I mean, St. Petersburg basically is on the edge of the inlet that is both now flanked by, I think it's Estonia, I could be wrong, I'm not sure which country that is.
Yeah, this ABC map has not labelled that other territory. Adam's going,
the main route out from, I'm pretty sure there's a naval base around St. Petersburg, but if they wanted to get ships in and out of that region, they now have to go through completely controlled NATO territory, basically, assuming Sweden joins. So I guess the question being is, does this just sort of steal Putin and be like, look, this is what I was talking about? Like, does it play into his hands domestically? Or does it,
This is the thing, is when you're a fascist, everything plays into your hands domestically until it doesn't, right? You just go, oh, look, I'm getting arrested and arraigned before a New York jury. See, they're out to get me. See, all of these crimes that I did, they're out to get me. Anything is justification.
If they came for me, they'll come for you when you pay off a porn star.
Next time you pay off a porn star to protect your presidential election, they're going to come after you as well. It's anything is grist for the mill for fascists. So, I mean, no matter how it shook out, whether they did or they didn't expand NATO, Putin would say, see, this is why we need to, have a more muscular stance towards NATO. So
it's whether or not more people in Russia will be like, yeah, but this is only happening because of what you're doing, and then doing all the division internally.
To me, it shows that Putin is a fucking idiot, because this is exactly what we said when the Ukraine invasion was launched. It was like, if you're thinking from a tactical standpoint, like, from a tactical position, we're going to take this territory in Ukraine. We're going to win the war. We're going to, I don't know, set up a puppet government in Ukraine, whatever you think is going to happen. But from a strategic standpoint, you understand how the rest of the world is going to react. They're going to be like, hey, that's bad. And then other countries around you are going to go, hey, this NATO thing is starting to sound pretty good. Because you're talking about creeping NATO expansion. Well, you've just proved all the people that were paranoid about Russia completely correct, because you've just invaded one of your neighbors. So their obvious reaction is going to go, maybe I should join this NATO. And this NATO thing's sounding pretty good right now, because it would help me not get invaded by my neighbor Russia, who has a habit of invading people. Like the obvious flow on second and third order effects from the choice that you've just made in invading Ukraine is going to be further NATO expansion. So if that's the thing that you're really upset about, then why are you doing the thing that you're doing, being invading Ukraine?
Putting a match on the fire at this point.
Right. I'm really afraid of being blown up. I'm just going to light this fuse that I'm sitting on. It's like, well, what do you think's going to happen? Like, it doesn't take a genius to figure that out. That's not a brilliant strategic mind. If George can come up with it here sitting in Australia just going, I think that's going to make everyone want to join NATO pretty bad. Like, if I can think of it, surely Putin would have thought of it.
And strategically, it really fucks Russia, because it means now that their northern fleet, which goes out of sort of just above to the northern, sort of around the Arctic Circle, that fleet, they now have to go around both the Finnish and Nordic coast to get also around to the Atlantic. So, like, strategically now, like, if the whole point of this was to sort of stop, to keep their strategic sort of lanes of, shipping and God knows what else open, they're fucked now, basically.
But that's why, if you're worried about NATO encroachment, then as Russia, then surely your job is to give the neighbors to the west of you a better deal than they're getting from NATO. Like, that seems like the sensible way to handle it. If you're Russia...
But if that better deal is, I could either keep shelling you or not shell you.
Yes, I'm gonna stop hitting you in the head with a hammer.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, give them a better deal, but you start them off with something real shit.
The Russians don't know how to do it because, even you look back into the Cold War, like Czechoslovakia and stuff, and was it Czechoslovakia? But basically, there was a sort of an uprising. There were several uprisings, throughout the course of the Soviet Union. And every single time there was an uprising, they rolled in with their tanks, and that was the way they dealt with things. And it doesn't work.
Well, this is the thing. It's like China's much better at this. They're like, hey, we want good relationships with, whomever, Russia in this case. So we're gonna maybe send them some defensive hardware, and we'll get some cheap gas out of it. And they're sort of making moves. They're making deals that are to their strategic benefit. But they're not going so far as to invade Taiwan, at least not yet, because it's well, that's the way the balance of probabilities, the way the chess table is currently set. It's probably not going to work out too well for us if we invade, at least right now. So that's why they're not doing it. So, but this is how diplomacy works. It's all about, if you want friends, you got to give them stuff. You can't you don't make friends with tanks. That's not how it works. And the more
unless your friend really likes tanks.
Unless you're giving your friend tanks. Yeah, that's I suppose it's a different situation. But
yeah,
the point is if you're trying to make friends, if you're trying to prevent the encroachment of NATO, you need to do it with you need to do it with diplomacy, not with military. It actively
with salad.
You don't make friends with salad.
Putin needs to make salads. That's what he needs to bring: a salad, make a garlic bread, pop on round. For Putin, the first time Putin's been seen, I think, outside of Russia is he went. Well, technically, he was still inside Russia. He went to Crimea, I think, or one of those, or maybe one of Donetsk, one of the
one of
Russian-held areas.
Territories that he's just claimed.
Driving around in a car, I saw.
Yeah,
it was.
That was the first time he's been out of Moscow.
Mariupol is where that was.
Yeah. First time he's been out of Moscow in years.
Yeah.
So he needs to. Apparently, he doesn't like. There's also this thing where his head of in his security service, the comms guy, basically defected. Has been giving interviews and stuff recently.
Nice. Oh, good.
Apparently, he doesn't fly anywhere. Every time he sees an entourage go to a plane, he's not actually in that. He travels by train only.
Yeah.
And doesn't carry a phone. Everything's got to be set up hardwired for him.
Mm-hmm.
He's
he's a guy in his what is he, 60s, 70s?
70s, isn't he?
Oh, Lord knows.
It just proves to me that it's ideological, right? It's about, I think I'm the king of fucking the USSR and I'm going to take it by force. And there's really no, with Putin, I guess there was always this narrative of he's playing 12D chess and, some brilliant Soviet Russian, fucking Cold War mind. And it's just no, he's just an old man who really wants a thing and hasn't really thought about the consequences of what it would actually mean to get it. And forget the fact that it makes your country a pariah on the world stage and actually doesn't advance your other strategic interests. It's he's just fuck it, I don't care. I really want Ukraine.
Speaking of old men wanting things and being pariahs, the wonderful committees that we have in the Australian Parliament, there's a variety of them.
Love a good committee.
Where senators get to sit on a committee and they get to talk about things and ask questions to experts. Mm-hmm. And quite often, I think these days, senators are really enjoying the fact they get to use these as gotcha moments for the inept public servants or whatever
They love the fact that they can clip this footage and put it on their Twitter and rile up the base and I guess get them to donate or whatever it is.
Although
and get morons like us to play it and then talk about it.
But exactly. Some problem is
are we the bad?
The last several months is that in some of these committees, some of the conservative senators have been putting clips up of themselves looking like idiots.
Well, they think it makes them look good, but
I don't understand. There's a Hugh Riminton tweet here, which is what you've capped in, George, Just that, like, how, like, is it possible to be so stupid that you don't know you're stupid?
It's a Dunning-Kruger effect, right?
I guess we'll play this clip, and then you guys can be the judge yourselves.
And I was taught in grade 8 science that basically materials come in three forms: liquid, gas, and solid objects. And I didn't know that gases could trap convection in the same way that a greenhouse would trap rising air, cool, and then condense. I don't see how gases can do that.
Yeah, so I think we've talked about this before, Senator, the phenomena of the atmosphere being kind of like a blanket around the Earth.
I don't like that description. Does gas trap convection or not?
But we know from temperature measurements going back a very long time that the Earth is about 16 degrees warmer because of the residual greenhouse gases, CO2 mostly.
Or gravity.
In the atmosphere.
Or gravity.
So I'm not sure I understand your point there.
Well, gravity. Anyway, I know you don't think gravity has a part of it, and we'll take that up another day. That's fine. I just wanted an answer. Does gas trap convection?
Does gas trap convection?
Yeah, well, heat's transmitted in three ways: convection, conduction, radiation.
It's the radiation that gets absorbed. So the Earth radiates heat.
Yeah, I understand all that, but that's not the only factor.
Certain molecules absorb infrared better than others. So water vapor absorbs really well. CO2 absorbs really well. Methane absorbs really well. So when they absorb the energy, they heat up, and so you warm the
Mr.
atmosphere.
Marshall, it's not the question I asked you. Do gases trap convection?
Senator Rennick, you said that it was your last question. Are you happy for Dr. Marshall?
Well, he's continuing. He's going down the path of radiation.
Okay. We're just at the end of your block, so we'll just let Dr. Marshall finish his answer to your question, and then I'll allocate the call.
So do gases trap convection?
Maybe if I can just try and clarify. So, there's conduction, convection, and radiation. They're the three modes of heat transfer.
Yeah.
Convection is heat transferred through the movement of a fluid, whether it's a gas or a liquid.
Yeah.
So convection or gas doesn't trap it. Moving gas is convection. And then if you look at the Earth, the boundary layer or the boundary condition you have to put there is the edge of the atmosphere. Yep. There is no movement of gas out across that. So radiation is the only way it can happen. That's why we talk about radiation.
Yeah, and it's trapped in the atmosphere by gravity. Thanks. It's all good.
What binds us together is bigger than what draws us apart.
Ending. Oh my God! Like that might not have worked for people on sort of the just listening to this as in pure audio, but just then that slamming to a mic drop of like this high energy music with a quick little photo of the senator being all like, "Yeah, we're awesome." Like that was amazing. I mean, holy shit, that was some crazy bullshit. I mean, yeah, from my really dumb, not scientist perspective, gravity's involved in the sense that it keeps gases near the planet. That's what the atmosphere is. Like, if it weren't for gravity, it'd just fuck off into space. That's it. It's still getting warmer.
I don't don't quite understand what point he is trying to make. I'm sure it's like some sort of global warming is a hoax point.
I think he was just wanting the scientists to be like he was trying to say something like, does gas trap convection, for them to be like, what? No, it doesn't. Like, gas doesn't do that. And then he can be like, yeah, see, there it is. The scientists say it's impossible. This is all bullshit. They don't even know how it works. What's the point of saying
the science? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What's the point of trying to get some sort of gotcha on the scientists, unless you're trying to basically sow doubt in science and say global warming isn't real?
Let's look at his website.
I know it's like some sort of conspiracy galaxy brain bullshit, but I can't quite understand how.
This is from his website, right? Which is also what he's put in the description of the video.
Yeah.
Climate scientists argue that CO2 traps heat in the same way that a greenhouse traps heat. This is categorically false.
Yeah, it's kind of
a greenhouse.
It's a metaphor.
Or blanket.
Yeah,
traps convection because it is a solid object. CO2 is a gas. It cannot trap convection. This matters because convection is the process by which heat is carried away from the Earth. As you said, the greenhouse is a metaphor.
Yeah, it's a metaphor. It's not a literal greenhouse around the Earth.
Not a literal greenhouse. So what he's saying is he's trying to say that, well, basically,
global warming's not real.
the heat from the Earth should be able to just disperse out into space, but it's actually gravity that's holding it, not CO2. That's his point. His point is that CO2, we could pump as much. His point is we could pump as much CO2 as we could in the atmosphere, and it wouldn't make any difference because gravity is what's actually trapping the heat. That's his scientific theory.
Right. Okay,
and it's
nonsense.
The CO2 that, but it's like trapping the what? Like the CO2 is what's causing the heat that is then being trapped by
That's
gravity.
also not how convection works, by the way. Convection is hot air rises, it cools, and then it sinks.
Down. Yeah.
That's convection.
Yeah, it doesn't just yeet out into space.
It's not. He thoroughly misunderstands convection as a concept.
But he learned about it in grade 8, Adam.
But the thing is,
he said so himself.
He's put this is a legislation committee.
Great.
In Parliament. Why are they talking about this?
Yes, I would like to legislate that gravity no do that.
Yeah.
That is my next bill.
Hey, Gravity.
I would like you to back me up on this.
Hey, Gravity.
Gravity is now illegal.
I'm assuming they're talking about the safeguards and stuff that the government would recently
they'll be talking about like CO2 emission policy kind of things, like, and trying to head them off at the pass on another carbon tax, an emissions trading scheme.
But like the concept, it just like I don't understand how he's managed to confuse that in his head about what convection is.
Yeah, well, it's all his whole thing of like, he's arguing against net zero CO2 emission affecting climate change. Like, because, it's not, as you say, it's not the CO2 that's warming the planet. It's that gravity's keeping heat here. But
I mean, I think the overall point is that this is a classic example of Dunning-Kruger, where it's like, you know enough to think that you know something, but you don't know enough. It's that theory that like people who know a little bit think that they know a lot because they've learnt a small amount. But the fact is like, there is so much more out there that you don't know. So just because you learned something about convection in year 8 doesn't mean you fully understand global warming. Doesn't mean you're smart enough to like see through the lies of the science. Like, you're just capable enough to be a dangerous fucking idiot.
Yeah. You're just capable enough to ask the question and then for someone with expertise to explain the answer.
And for you to think you know better.
Yeah. Like, that's the thing of like, sure, you could misunderstand it from your grade 8 science, being like, wait, but no, from my understanding of how convection works, so that's what that should be. So hang on, that doesn't make any sense. And they go, well, no, actually, because X, Y, and Z from my extra years of expertise in this field.
Turns out,
I understand. Thank you for clarifying.
Turns out I spent another fucking 13 years studying this to get my PhD, so I might actually know a little bit more than you know about it. Turns out.
I mean, this is another example of who was the guy back in Malcolm Roberts?
The corrupted.
Another one of these.
Data.
Similar styled senators where they have their theory and they've gotten into politics somehow on someone else's ticket, and all of a sudden they've got free reign to just ask stupid questions, trying to pigeonhole their theory into the mainstream.
They're trying, which is the opposite of how science works. Science is you come up with a hypothesis and then you find the supporting data to prove or disprove your hypothesis. You don't have a pet theory and then go looking for evidence and cherry pick the evidence that suits your theory and your particular point of view. It's literally the opposite of how science works. Like, it's just so, and you're right. There's a real, for whatever it is, just absolute flourishing of fuckheads in the space who are happy to use their 8th grade understanding of convection or whatever their pet issue is to stir up some bullshit committee in the Senate and then try and get, some clicks on social media off it as a result.
His current tweet has, actually there's different data here. One says 273,000 views. The other one says 985,000 views. 115 retweets.
Data's been corrupted, Adam.
It's definitely been corrupted by Elon. But people have been replying to that and adding him and everything else, and a lot of it is not positive, so I don't know why he put that out there.
But this is the thing: is in today's like outrage Twitter culture, it doesn't matter if you're the if the attention that you're garnering is positive attention. What matters is that you are the center of attention and that you're getting views, you're getting clicks. The people who don't like you, and yes, it might be 8/10 of the people that are looking at your video and telling you're wrong and you're a fuckhead, by commenting on it and by quote tweeting it and, hate responding, they're boosting it in the algorithm and they're driving up engagement. And so the 2 out of 10 people idiots that think he's correct about whatever bullshit it is that he's spouting, it hits more of those people, and more of those people then turn around and go, yeah, this is my guy. He's defending my perspective, my point of view. I'm going to donate to his campaign. So it's not about convincing. It's about engagement and boosting your reach to try and hit as many of the people that are already in your corner as possible. And outrage does that. Outrage is grist for the mill. This is what we learned from the Social Dilemma: is everything you do that generates outrage on these platforms is helps them win.
It's a good way of circling back to Trump, in which means he'll be the next president of the United States.
Yeah, possibly. Do we what's our responsibility then as like people who commentate about this sort of stuff and make fun of it? Because I always thought like making fun of it was the best way to sort of short circuit this. And I'm wondering now, do we just like not talk about this stuff? Do we just ignore it? Like I said before, like, are we the baddies for talking about this? Because talking about it and boosting and amplifying it, maybe making people go and watch the video, plays into exactly what they're trying to do. These senators, Rennick and Antic and Pauline Hanson. This is exactly what they want, is to trigger the libs and make us talk about it. Like that's
if you were the Chinese Communist Party, silence would be the best measure of it. Don't acknowledge it.
Yeah.
Suppress it. But we live in a democracy, so I guess we have to. We're sold to our fate.
I guess for us though, as like internet comedian commentator people, like do we engage? Should we engage with this stuff? If that's just if it's helping people on the other end of the ideological spectrum, but I like making fun of it. It is easy.
Well, it gets me out of bed in the morning, George.
It does give me a certain amount of joy. What do you think?
I don't know. It's a tricky one because in the sense of like to just ignore it then just lets it go out there unchallenged, and then you will definitely miss all the people who encounter it and then just believe it, who might have otherwise been swayed by a conflicting opinion. But then, you will, like, I guess there's no perfect answer because, you run the risk of amplifying the message just in that sort of way as well. It's where, like, I think it depends what the discussion is. It's different between, like, us having a clip like that and then talking about it and whatever, compared to if, say, like, let's get the senator on for an interview and talk to him about it, because then I feel all you'll achieve there is give him more opportunity to say more bullshit.
Legitimize him, yeah.
And that's all you're done. It's like all those people who are like, interviewing fucking Blair Cockrell and all those sorts of people being like, no, don't do that.
Yeah, Tom.
Don't do that. You're not gonna get him.
Tom Tilley on Hacks being like, let's just find out what this white supremacist reckons.
Yeah. Like no one's talking to them.
Yeah, you're right. But like how I was sort of activated makes it sound like I'm a Manchurian candidate. But
I was gonna say fucking sleeper agent here. Just like suddenly must kill the president.
No, the way I was sort of like initially politically activated was watching shows like The Daily Show with Jon Stewart and the Colbert Report and things like that. And watching that political satire got me into the world of thinking and learning about it. And literally, like, Colbert's series on super PACs, I think he won a Peabody Award for that, because it was like also good journalism. I didn't know shit about super PACs until the Citizens United Supreme Court decision, and him talking about it and doing all these sketches around what it would mean, and him setting up his own little super PAC and colluding with not himself to run the super PAC and all this sort of stuff. Like, that was really educational, and it got me interested, and it got me talking about it, and we started we started doing the show in 2010 as a result of me looking at things like The Daily Show. So I can see from my own personal perspective the utility of talking about it and satirizing it and getting people involved. I guess I'm sort of asking a broader question which might be unanswerable. It's like, does satire work? Does it do anything? Does it improve anything other than like making other people like you laugh at the thing that we're both laughing at? Like, does it actually do anything? Does it move anything out there? I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. I think it can in certain instances, but not to everyone. Like, you know, there are things like being exposed to ideas and knowledge through satire or like more comedic kind of presentations of news and all that sort of stuff. Like, yeah, stuff like The Daily Show, or I've had the same with like, you know, John Oliver's programs and all that sort of stuff being like quite engaging ways to learn about new perspectives on things.
Hassan Minhaj is another great one. Like, I feel like it's
Patriot Act being cancelled is travesty. Infuriating. His was one of the best.
I feel as though like I am a better human. I'm more empathetic. I know more. I care more. Like, as a result of having watched these shows and engaged with this sort of content, I think it has made me a better person. It's definitely informed my political beliefs.
Yeah, but not everyone is as open to that. I know, like, a lot of people might palm that off as being like, it's an intelligence thing. Like, some people are just too stupid. It's like, no, it's not that. But like, not everyone will be open to like sitting down to have like a perspective on something challenged in quite the same way. Or just not in those ways by those people. Like, and that's where it gets a bit tricky, right? Because, you know, sometimes they love their perspective being challenged by someone like Tucker Carlson. Because it's like, yeah, it's more fucked than I thought it was. It's like, you know, the immigrants are doing what to the green M&M? Like, yeah, like, you know, they can be swayed further. But yeah. So it's a tough one. And it's a question people have probably been asking long before we were born, and they'll be asking it long after we're dead.
What do you reckon, Adam?
I think we're products of the environment we surround ourselves in, and the more you broaden your environment, then the more broad you will become.
Oh, 10,000%.
Yeah. Yeah, because I wonder if would I have become the person I am regardless of whether I watched The Daily Show or Patriot Act or... No. But I have to think like, no, right? Like...
No, you wouldn't have.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, it can cut both ways. You can be listening to those shows, or you could be a conservative weasel and listening to Chris Kenny on Sky News out of a fire hose, and you'll become a different person. So that's democracy. Otherwise, the alternative is suppression, CCP, and sit in your own box, stay in your own lane, and do what we tell you to.
The whole idea of democracy, I guess, like at its foundation, kind of presupposes that people are persuadable, that you can have a rational conversation with someone and sit them down, explain your point of view, and they go, actually, that makes sense. I'm going to change the way I feel about this.
The other thing as well is that, you know, the fact is that there are more information sources. We have more data and information now than we know what to do with, and the human brain, particularly the current education system, isn't set up for us to be able to digest through that and to understand how we're being manipulated. We're not. The technology has gone so far that we haven't caught up with it culturally, and that is something that.
And now we've got GPT that can generate 1,000 pieces of misinformation a second. So what brave new world that has such people in it?
It's kind of like the Matrix, where he's, you know, this is 1999, and he says this is our world, and he goes, well, it's the last. It's the version of the world that was the last sort of version of your world before we started running things, right?
The robots.
The robots, yeah. And that's kind of true to a certain extent.
On that happy note, we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all the bullshit social medias that are ruining the world, that have, do, or ever will exist. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Twitch, and motherfucking TikTok. That's at Unnatural Show. Make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram at George Tsipos.
You can follow me on Twitter at Tom D. Heath.
You can follow me down to the Legislation Committee, where I'll be discussing in depth the effects of gravity and convection with Senator Rennick, I think his name is.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you don't know shit about it. You just got to say things confidently, and then you can post.
I'm just asking a question. Just asking a question.
Just asking questions. Yeah. And we all agree it was because of gravity. I love the way that he like buttonholed that little conversation, and we all agree it's because of gravity. I'm right, and see you later.
Yep. Say it with confidence in a high vis vest with a lanyard.
Oh,
gets you everywhere.
Yeah, if you can be using a shovel, breaking ground on something, people will take it for absolute gospel truth, even if it's unrelated to construction projects. Just talking about convection and gas, just in front of
gravity,
a new railway station with a ribbon, cutting a ribbon. People are like, man, this guy knows what he's talking about.
Smart.
Smart. Thanks for listening, guys. I love your faces. We'll see you next week.